I would say watching football games like last night make you really disappointed in the football teams here. Although, the Giant game was a good game on Sunday. There was a lot of things that were happening in that game. And
sure.
It was exciting. There were a lot of great plays on both sides. When you watch like Justin Herbert play or you watch Joe Burrow play, now I don't know if it's just because they're young kids and they don't know any better, but, man, they take chances down the field. They're not afraid to throw the ball into man coverage, tight man coverage. It's like they're not afraid to make a mistake. And I believe both quarterbacks here are trying their damnedest not to make mistakes, which means you really can't play effectively when you're like that. I mean, you want to, like Drew Brees had a very average first half last night. And, yeah, I was watching it just like everybody else, where he's throwing the ball into the ground. He's not reaching his receivers. So he had an off first half. So whatever happened in the second half, whatever adjustments they made, whatever he did to get himself motivated and back into the game certainly worked as he threw the ball down the field more. And everybody's wondering why he doesn't throw the ball down the field more. But remember, he's also missing his most explosive wide receiver because he punched his teammate. Right. So Michael Thomas was out of the game last night. But, the thing is just watching these other teams. And I see it week to week. So I see a lot of young quarterbacks, a lot of great kids throwing the ball down the field, making plays. And we don't see a lot of that between the two teams here. And we have two young quarterbacks that should be doing that when they're on the field.
Yeah, so Daniel Jones, you see a little bit more of it than Sam Darnold, but not enough. So the one throw that I was going to bring up today, it actually led to the missed field goal by the Chargers, a 50-yard off the upright, which could have won them the game and should have won them the game because they were the better team most of the night. But that throw that Justin Herbert made to Mike Williams, where he went up and got that ball to put them in a position to attempt that 50-yard field goal, I thought to myself, in that situation, I understand you got to go down the field, but when was the last time you saw Sam Darnold make a throw like that? Just like heave it to a receiver to go up and get. Now, I know the receivers stink here.
Yeah.
But, when have you ever seen him just you know what? I'm going to throw this up here and have a guy make a play. Or I'm going to go down the field, or I trust my arm. Or you never see him make throws like that, ever.
Well, there's two things. One, Mike Williams had two defenders right there on him. So the ball had to be perfectly placed in order for him to make an acrobatic catch. I would venture to say that Sam or Daniel Jones would drop back and look at that and not throw the ball there because they don't want to throw an interception. They would not trust. Maybe Darius Slayton would be trusted by Daniel Jones, but I don't necessarily know that there's a guy on the Jets roster that you could trust, that you could actually throw the ball in that situation and expect them to come down with it. There is. And I go back to 1995, the year that we basically had no wide receivers going into the season. That was the year that Wayne Corbett was a rookie, and he was our starting flanker. And, he was learning the position, learning how to play the NFL. And, there's a learning curve for those kids. And, at least I was able to give some tips and to help them in practice and to help them on the football field. But it's the other way around now with Sam and with Daniel, and they're not they haven't been around long enough to where I think that they can help themselves a little bit, and I don't know if they do or not. I don't know if they're as forceful as they need to be. But then again, last night watching Justin Herbert, what were they talking about? They were talking about his introverted personality and how that was like a knock against him coming out of college, and the fact that he stayed in college an extra year and didn't come out because he would have been a first-round draft choice the year before, too. So right. I just, all these kids are different. All these kids are in different situations, and I bet you Pat Pavlenton is quarterback coach, and I'm sure Anthony Lynn is, telling him, look, you have great wide receivers. When you have Mike Williams out there and Keenan Allen out there, just throw them the ball, man. They will go get the ball for you. You can trust that they will go out there and they will not allow it to be intercepted. That's how athletic they are. So, I would say the numbers are really good for Justin last night. And his down-the-field throws were great. His accuracy was good in man-to-man coverage in the tight red zone. And it's amazing to me that, we don't see that from the Giants in the red zone, and we don't see that from the Jets in the red zone. It's almost like every time they go back to throw, they have to throw it out of the back of the end zone because nobody's open, or they're afraid to make a mistake and they don't want to give their wide receiver or tight end the chance to go up and make a play for them.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert seems like he knows the risk, but he's willing to take it anyway because he trusts what he is capable of. That's the way he plays.
Yeah, plus his arm is phenomenal. He's got a cannon
it's
for an
crazy.
arm. He's like Josh Allen you'll see tonight for the Bills. It's
right.
Same kind of arm.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh Allen seems a little more calculated, maybe because he's been in the league a couple more years and he has learned from those few years that he's been a starting quarterback. Justin Herbert is just like fast and loose and just running around and throwing the ball. It's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to watch that game last night more than anything else was to watch him. That's the only thing I cared about. And it made me angry about what we have here and how those guys could have been him and have not been him to this point. Now, Daniel Jones is someone that I still feel like there's a shot that he can figure it out. But, I mean, every week that goes by where he's mounted, the turnovers continue to mount, and the fact that he's playing in the way that you have pointed out where it's like he cares more about not turning the ball over than making a big play, that's just going to spiral, and it's going to be the end of him being excited about him. Because Sam Darnold at this point, I mean, I remember talking about the Jets and saying that, every Jet game is going to be exciting when Sam Darnold starts because of the potential, and you might have that next guy. And when you have that rookie quarterback that comes in, you think about all the possibilities. I mean, for me, that's out the window now. Even when he comes back, I'm not excited to see him any longer. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I have, as a football observer in New York, thrown the towel in on him being a good quarterback.
Well, it's hard to tell, but it's also hard to tell.
Maybe it's wrong, and maybe he goes somewhere else and figures it out because he's still so young. But, I just don't think it's happening for him here. I don't know how it's going to end with a trade at the end of the year, maybe a trade at the trade deadline, which would be crazy. I don't know how it's going to end, but it feels like it's going to end.
Yeah. I don't know necessarily that it's his fault. I mean, again, you're in the jet blender of decision making and changing people and moving people around and bringing in new people. And I think that's probably going to happen again. But the interesting thing is that Dexter Lawrence, the quarterback at Clemson, is physically very similar to Josh Allen of the Bills and what we saw last night, Justin Herbert. He's that big, he's that athletic, and he has that kind of arm. So that's the kind of kid we're talking about here that's going to be, number one in the draft next year. And if one of these two teams end up with the number one draft pick, they're going to have, I think the decision will be made. They'll take that kid, and then they'll try to move on from their younger quarterback that they have, and then they'll start all over again. But I as long as they look like, even though Joe Burrow had a rough outing against Baltimore, that's not his fault. That's his offense's fault. That's his team's fault. And he got assaulted. He got sacked 7 times, and he was just overwhelmed. Now, that's going to happen from time to time for most rookie quarterbacks, especially ones that start in week 1 right out of the gate. There's a mental aspect to the NFL that just is unrelenting during a 16-game season. And I'm sure the last thing that Joe Burrow ever expected was a beatdown like he had at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens defense, but they could do that to you. And I just... it's how they handle the beatdown, how they come back from it. And listening to Burrow talk after the game, after that Baltimore game, he said all the right things. He said, hey, I got to get better. I got to be quicker with my decision-making. He's a rookie, man. He's going to hit the wall eventually mentally because they're asking him to do so much. And that's the same thing with Justin Herbert. But both of those kids, you can see just on the field that neither one of them look panicked at all when things break down around them and they have to run with the ball and they have to look down the field and make throws.
Yeah, so this is another reason why the Jets and Giants roster excuses and the injury stuff, to me, is falling on deaf ears these days, especially with the Jets. The Giants, I get it, but especially with the Jets. So Greg Rosenthal, who covers the NFL, used to be with Pro Football Talk. I think he's doing his own thing now. He tweeted this out last night, just to give perspective, because we're such in the Jet and Giant bubble, sometimes we forget what's going on with other teams. So last night, the Chargers were missing Pro Bowl wide receiver, Pro Bowl guard, Pro Bowl defensive end, Pro Bowl cornerback, and all-pro safety, starting running back, starting right tackle, starting defensive tackle, and starting linebacker. All last night. Didn't play in the game. And, oh, by the way, they had to start their rookie quarterback, who looks like he's a great player, before they wanted to because their team doctor stabbed the starting quarterback in the chest with a needle and punctured his lung. So, I mean, every team faces adversity. And I know the Chargers lost last night, and I know they lost in overtime, and they blew a lead, and that was bad. But the way that they played that game was incredible, and they had a shot to win it at the end. I mean, they were underdogs by a touchdown. I mean, it's stuff like that when you compare the Jets to these other teams that are facing massive adversity, and you see that they're the only team that's not competing. Because every other team in the NFL, you could say, has competed for the most part, right? Every one. Like, name the worst teams in the NFL, you could say that they at least won a game or they competed in more than one loss. And the Jets are the only ones. The only ones. And that game that they came close to winning was against a team that was horrendous with a third-string quarterback. So it's that type of stuff that's going to drive a Jet fan crazy, because you get other teams that, yeah, they've got bad records, but there's something there. There's nothing here with the Jets. Not a thing. I mean, Joe Douglas has got a long way to go, a really long way to go. I mean, when I asked you the other day, like, what's the thing that's like the positive with the Jets right now? What'd you say? I mean, you said like a practice squad wide receiver got elevated that caught a couple of balls in the game because that's all you had. So, I mean, think about all the work that has to be done. And by the way, I did look at Le'Veon Bell's contract. He is not going to be here after this year. There's a $4 million buyout.
There's no way. He may not make it through the season, given what's going on right now about, his passive aggressiveness and his social media likes and dislikes,
right?
And won't talk to the media because he's a baby,
right?
And won't talk to the head coach. The head coach can't stand him. You're spending way too much airtime on one guy that you can't count on at all. You can't count on him at all. I mean, whether it be the flu last year and then he decides to go bowling with his friends the night before the game, which is a horrendous look, or a guy that's bitching and complaining on social media, and then the coach has got to be asked about it in a press conference, and then the coach is under fire. I mean, it is just such a mangled mess right now. And there is absolutely, and I feel bad for the players. I feel bad for Joe Flacco. This is not what Joe Flacco signed up for. He signed up to be a backup, yes, and he was hoping that he was going to be on a reasonably decent team.
He doesn't want to play.
But
he doesn't even want to play.
No, he wants to play, but he doesn't want to play like this. He doesn't want to be in this situation. Look, I lived it. I know it, man. I know exactly how it feels. It sucks. It sucks going to work every day. I mean, the paychecks are great. The treatment of the players is great. The food is great. The health care and all that stuff is great. All of that stuff is first class, 100%. And the Jets do treat their players exceptionally well. The way they travel, the way they take care of them at that Florham Park facility. The facility is second to none in this league, maybe with the exception of what Dallas has. But I have to, there is just no fight, no desire. And their performance on the field says to me, as somebody who has not only played, but has also played on bad teams and has also covered this league for 25 years, that the players do not want to play for the coach. And they're not playing for the coach, which is really an indictment, for Adam Gase, which is the hard thing to really stomach, because they have families. They live in this world, and their kids got to go to school, and their wives got to deal with all the nonsense that they probably hear. The only thing that's good about this year from a COVID-19 standpoint is that there are no fans at home games to absolutely just rip into them and tear into them. So at least that part of it is not a part of what is happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that helps Adam Gase's case to finish the season, because some of those images or sounds and sights of a home crowd booing the hell out of the team going into halftime or after the game, or everybody leaving a game, or the attendance that's supposed to be a packed place is completely empty because everybody's given up. All of those images that you get in a team that is just miserable aren't there. So that's the type of stuff that really gets owners when they see and hear those things. And the Jets don't have to deal with any of that. So that actually might have Adam Gase finishing the season. But we don't know how bad it's going to get. And if he gives up play calling, by the way, what does he do? That's all he does is the play calling and the sheet and the sitting on the bench by himself and doodling and all that stuff.
But time out now. Just so you know, other coaches do the same thing. And I get sick and tired of criticizing him for taking notes on the sideline and sitting down on the bench, going over his play sheet and talking to his quarterback.
Well, when you're horrible at it and you don't do anything else with the team, and the team is the worst in the NFL, you're going to get that criticism.
He's like every other head coach that is a play caller for whatever side of the defense. So
tell me what he does if he stops calling plays.
Well, then maybe he becomes the head coach and really focuses on the entire team and focuses on the entire game and minimizes, his distraction when it comes to running the football team. There are a lot of guys like a Bill Parcells, he would entrust his long-term coordinators, but he would still talk to them, constantly during those series. He wouldn't be, he may be screaming and yelling at a player during the game with the negative reinforcement that he liked, and certain players could handle it and certain players couldn't. But there are a lot more coaches nowadays that are hired because of it. So when Eric Bieniemy gets hired, whoever hires him, whatever fan base he goes to, they're going to think that they're going to see the Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes-led offense. That's what they think. That's why they're going to hire him. And I'm just going to tell people that if you don't have Patrick Mahomes, it ain't going to look the same. It just is not going to look the same.
Well, there's been plenty of guys, though, who have left that Andy Reid regime and ended up being okay. Now, Matt Nagy's going through a little bit of a time here, but when he first left, he won the division in his first year as a head coach there. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl after he left the Chiefs. So it's not only that. I mean, and those two guys, left before Mahomes became him and before Mahomes became Mahomes. Okay. But, yeah, I mean, I still think that Andy Reid coaching tree is one that you point to and say, a lot of guys came off of that thing and have been pretty good. So that's going to help Bieniemy as well.
If Eric Bieniemy goes to Houston, they're going to expect, Deshaun Watson to be turning into Patrick Mahomes. And I just watched the game yesterday between Houston and Jacksonville, and Deshaun Watson had huge numbers. But if you watch the way the game was played and the way that he was running around, it's not necessarily how they call it and draw it up. And there's a lot of times where he just takes off from when he doesn't have to. When all he has to do is just stand in there, read the defense, and get rid of the ball quickly. And he is still doing what he was doing when he was a rookie, and they're paying him $140 million to play that way. And it's fine. It's exciting when it works. But when it doesn't work, they're not going to the Super Bowl if he's going to continue to play the way he's playing. Let's put it that way. It's going to be exciting to watch it, but it's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to be a Justin Herbert in a couple of years. It's not going to be the Joe Burrow in a couple of years because, to me, you have to still do it from the pocket and you have to do it on time, which you do see a lot of quarterbacks do on a daily basis out on the football field, and that's one of the reasons why their teams win, like a Patrick Mahomes.
Well, at least it'll be exciting because they'll have that.
He's exciting. There's no question about it.
They'll have that.
Yes.
Because I don't even know what that's like anymore. Even with the team that I root for, it's just not exciting at the quarterback position at all.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.